Good morning and welcome to, Good morning and welcome to day 3 of Admissions Connect. This morning we have come just slightly away from the other sessions that we've been running because this session we have put in here just for you. After all we've been through in 20 months, I know yesterday I said 20 years, and whoever was listening to that one, we've been through an awful lot, all of us have, and I think that this session will help and guide. It is personal development for 30 minutes. Tracy supports education using the mantra of serve, share and care. She is a qualified centre coach, and she is here to demonstrate that together we can put the I into individual and the you into human to invest in the life we want. We are going to take some question and answers at the end if you want to. If you want to ask a question anonymously, please just change the setting in the Q&A. If there's anything that Tracy's talking about as we go through that you would like to have more information about, please drop it into the chat and Tracy's more than happy to get that over to you. This is about you for the next 30 minutes. Tracy, thank you very much indeed for being here today. Over to you. Oh, just one more thing. When Tracy shares the slides, I'm really sorry you won't be able to see Tracy, but you will be able to hear her loud and clear. Thank you, Tracy.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. It's absolutely fantastic to be here, and I'm really looking forward to delivering the session with you today. First of all, I'd like to say thank you. I'd like to say thank you for attending the session in advance, because this might be the only personal development time you've had in the last 20 months. And for some of you, the situation has affected your well-being, and for a lot of other people, we've also questioned, our different career strategies and where we are now. And looking at where we are now to where we want to be is really, really important. So this morning, this could be the only 30 minutes that you have about you in the past couple of months. So what I'd say to you is make sure your phone's off, because this is your time. We're going to do a couple of exercises together. It's very, very interactive, because everyone has their own signature related to stress, your own procedures related to admissions, and I really want you to have the time to be able to focus properly. So in this session, if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them, or in addition afterwards as well, because sometimes when we're thinking about things to do with our well-being, it's so personal to us that we don't want everyone else in the room to know, our thinking and our next steps as well. So let's get started. I'm going to share my screen for you just now, and we're also going to have a little bit of fun at the beginning of the session. So every word has an I in it: admissions, education, and it's one letter that sometimes gets lost. So if you think about an admissions journey, when I've done the admissions qualification, and I've been supporting admissions in a few places. And as admissions practitioners, professionals, I'll let you choose which word reflects for you. We put so much energy into the eye of other people, getting that next step, getting, that young person, especially if their background and their needs would really, really benefit from being the best that they can with the gifts that they have at our school. But the person that's sitting in the chair, the admissions practitioner, that's delivering that service, that's supporting that family, and when you see that young person thrive at the end of it and you help them get to that school. But what if you put the same amount of energy into yourself? And that's the question that I asked myself quite a few years ago before starting this journey. Because if you think about our journey as professionals, we'll go the extra mile. So for some of you, depending on the admissions from certain markets, I bet you were up at 3 a.m. doing Zoom calls. Please don't put that in the chat. Because you wanted to work with your overseas partners. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at basically the journey and what's going on. So let's think about some visual representations of what could be going on. So here are two cartoons, and I hope I've given you a laugh this morning. These are two cartoons that have been created as part of my work, based on experience and different areas of school journeys. And you've got the SOS. And some schools, especially if you've got that number in your head, you know, the signs of stress adapted to that number in the waves of COVID change that we're all experiencing are actually quite tough to navigate. And sometimes as an admissions practitioner, you feel that you're in your own bottle or bubble, if I even want to say that word after the past 20 months, you know, and it's can be lonely depending on, you know, what's happening in your school as well. So when all the teachers and other support staff go away for the holidays, you know, you get great access to the coffee machine, but it can be quite lonely as well during those times. And then you are the manager, you are the third person that's involved in the manager of futures, expectations, and that word numbers. The word that has probably been driving everything to do with your well-being and also has been driving the relationships and the working relationships with your colleagues as well, especially in senior leadership. But what I want to do this morning is I want to look at changing the narrative for admissions practitioners in the UK, because we need to be looking at the secrets of success for you. And you are not a number. You are not a target. You are a practitioner that has hopes and dreams the same way as every person that you are dealing with, every family that you're dealing with. But to be able to support your school environment going forward, the only number that really you need to be considering is 1. But that number sometimes gets lost because the number that you're sitting in that chair is the number on that spreadsheet or that database. So for a moment, I just want you to reflect where you are sitting in your admissions chair. What's your self-talk like? How have you come into work this morning? I remember when I was supporting recruitment overseas for one of the new schools, I used to sit in the chair and go, okay, I need to find 5. I need to work with 5. We have an open day coming up. We have an admission selection event coming up. Okay, it's 5, it's 6, it's 7. And then my whole narrative is all around the words and the thoughts and the feelings and the behaviours regarding that number that didn't personally belong to me. It belonged to a collective community. It belonged to the whole school. But because I was in that chair and driving that forward, you know, the number wasn't 1. So what we're going to do this morning is we're going to reflect on 2 aspects. So the first one, when I said the 5 ways to put I into your well-being, is all about laughing. You know, they say laughter is the best medicine. So for example, some people that I've supported and worked with, they have a favourite funny movie that they watch, or, you know, some silly things. So when I'm working, I always have bubbles in my top drawer in my office, because sometimes, you know, when you were younger, you used to blow bubbles and try and link them together, you know, and that makes you laugh, and it's something, you know, fun that you can do. But we also need to become artists of our own future. So I'd invite you to grab a pen and a piece of paper and let's do some work together. Now, I'm going to give you an opt-out for this, because sometimes if this is the first time that you've done something like this, some people prefer to watch, depending on your learning style, or participate. I'm not going to ask you to share any of this in this community. So this is just for you. So let's see if I've just sent anybody to sleep yet. Okay. We're going to be building well-being from the inside out. And you'll see there's lots and lots of blocks on this page. And we're looking at plan, strategy, and innovation, but innovation starts with you. Success starts with you. And Tony Robbins says that success is all about clues. And these clues for you, depending on how you define yourself as a person, your admission success can be, and for a lot of people, professional success is aligned with their identity as a person. And it doesn't matter what area that you're in at the school as well. That would be the same for the colleagues that you're working with and the colleagues that you know you need that article for marketing admissions and they hand it in 30 minutes before the deadline. Because our professional and personal identities, especially in education, especially in admissions, marketing and boarding, are all linked together. So let's start building. 1 versus target. What if you actually took the word target out and put your number? Is that the mindset that you're living? That you are versus the target? Or the target is versing you if you really want to switch it around? And that creates thoughts, feelings, and behaviours based on your community. Because our big lump of grey matter, which is our brain, controls everything. And thoughts drive emotions and feelings, and then obviously that drives behaviour. And if we reflect in the admissions journey, when you're doing your tours and that, you're looking for those little curious points, those little positivity conversations that help move from inquiry to acceptance. So let's do a little bit of art. So what I'd like you to do is, I'd like you to draw a triangle upside down on any piece of paper that you've got. Now, the caveat with this is, you're going to choose how big this triangle is. If you go really, really small, then obviously you might not be able to write inside it. So kind of like a little bit of a guide if you could do the same as a screen. And a triangle is just a 3-sided shape. Try not turn it the other way up because that has a different meaning. You don't need to colour it in, but if you want to do some doodling around the side of it, I'm more than happy for you to do it. Okay, I think we're probably good to go. I know some of you will have drawn a really small triangle and then listened and crossed it out. And please don't worry about that. It happens every time I do this. And some people will draw a triangle the whole size of the piece of paper. Okay, and I'm not going to judge your art abilities because obviously you can't see me and I can't see what you've drawn. And what I want you to do is I want you to have a think about everything that, is going on inside that's, causing you a little bit of stress. And for this exercise, remember I said at the beginning, there's an opt-out if you don't feel comfortable to do it. So for example, in this triangle for me, there's quite a lot going on because some of my students have just sat exams, and some schools that I'm working with are looking at increasing numbers. Obviously, as well, it's Christmas time, and trying to shop at Christmas is an absolute nightmare. And I'm based in Yorkshire just now, and part of my stress at the minute is that my mum has found Betty's website and is giving me a very big shopping list for Betty's things for Christmas. And stress comes from different places. It could be related to your family. So for example, my nephew's just gone to university for the first time in Scotland, and I'm supporting him as well, just because he's not used to things, but he hasn't burnt toast to set the fire alarm off. So that's a very, very good idea. That is, helping him is good. But all these little things to do with stress related to you. So I'm just going to give you a couple of minutes, and I like to put personal examples in because, as delegates in this webinar, you're actually, sharing your story within that triangle. So I'm going to be quiet for a minute or so just to give you some time. If you want to opt out, please, you can just doodle at the side. Okay, if you could just pop the last couple into your triangle. That's fantastic. Thank you so much. So in this triangle is a snapshot in the moment of how you are and what is causing you concern or stress at this moment in time. And during the day, things change and things get added and things get subtracted. But that triangle is your actual capacity to be managing the stress that you're under. Now, everybody has different stress signatures. So for example, it could be that you cook a certain meal. It could be that you need to go for that extra 10-minute run. And all about stress is about being able to look at where you are now with stress and what works for you. And as a mental health first aid instructor, what we've been doing this morning is what's in your stress container. And if you look at the nice green circle, the green for go, You know, how you are and how things are for you and with you is in that container. So for some of you, you might have found doing that exercise freelance that your triangle was too small. Some of you, it was too big, and that's actually in the moment. And the stress that's happening in your personal and professional life is just flowing into the top of that container. And then what happens is that you have this moment where you could emotionally snap, that you could just be sitting in the chair and just, you know, thinking, okay, you know, this isn't for me, or okay, I need to do something to help me. And that's because your stress container is completely full. And if it overlaps or overflows, because some people like the word overlap for this because of the different areas of life, you know, that's when things start to go wrong. That's when sometimes, you know, you'll be typing a lot harder. Other times you could be snapping and you don't mean to, because we've all done it, because we're all human. And what happens now is that if you look at the Shaun the sheep at the end of this section, if we have a tap, if we have a container and we know ourselves and things it could do to actually release the stress, that means that that container is always not going to be full. But as admissions, you're not dealing with just one stress container. If we reflect this back into your day-to-day work, you're also dealing with the stress containers of the people that you're working with, and emotional energy is contagious, but also the stress containers of the senior management team. And for some of you, that will be pretty tough, very, very tough. And that's why this helpful coping strategies for you and having your action plan at the end is really, really important. So obviously at the end of any stressful experience, we're very, very tired as well, and everything becomes very, very emotional. So what I want you to do now is, because we've looked at what's stressful for you, let's have a look at your helpful coping strategies. Because if you can put 1 or 2 or 3 of these in place every day as part of your own well-being plan, then that will help you move forwards. So for example, you know, I am Tracy and I colour in. And when I've said that to people, like, well, you're over 40 and you colour in, and I'm like, yes, because I have a colouring book, because that gives me mindfulness. And I keep that in my office drawer as well. So if I'm having, you know, a bit of a moment during the day, and then I can be colouring in for 10, 15 minutes. So for some people, for example, there's a lot of stigma attached to mental health as well. And for some people, if they say that you colour in, you know, they look at you a certain way thinking, well, hang on a minute, you know, but now there's colouring books for absolutely everything. You know, other people would go for a run. Other people would go to yoga or do exercise or go for a walk and do photography. So I want you to just think of 2 or 3 things that are your go-tos when things get a little bit, you know, stressful for you. And I'm going to give you a minute just to write some down. Perfect. Now, sometimes when you're doing personal development or exercises like these, you get this long pause, this long silence. And it's like when you have a conversation with somebody and you have this long silence and you really want to jump in, you know, and ask something or say something. I would encourage you for your personal development to embrace the silence. And the reason why is that sometimes at the end of this silence, you get the best ideas. And some people don't embrace the silence as much. And I want you to just reflect on 2 or 3 things that you could add into your schedule during the week, or changing your routine slightly, because I believe that one change, I believe in the power of one change, one action, one new word, one conversation can help move somebody from where they are now to where they want to be. So I would encourage you to have a look at this and just maybe put 1 or 2 things in to help you. Please don't become overwhelmed if you don't have 3 or 4 things for your helpful coping strategies. Be curious. Think about the things that you used to enjoy, you know, when you were younger. So for example, I used to do a lot of baking. And, you know, when I'm looking at reducing my stress container, you know, I'll do some baking, or I'll cook a recipe from scratch. Just little things that change the thoughts, feelings, and behaviour. But in your profession and when you're working with people, the person beside you has their own stress container as well. And as emotions are contagious, their professional behaviour, the way that they walk around school or anything else related to that, we all get a sense of when another person is not okay. And this stress container exercise is absolutely fantastic for any age or any stage. And I do it every month. So I draw a triangle. I don't draw, all the other bits. I draw the triangle, I write what's going on, and then I look at basically my top 3 strategies. And then I action them. And if you do it every month, and not even the same day, but the same week, then you can actually see a pattern of your well-being as well. And obviously there's things that we can control and there's things that we can't control. So we need to be looking at our own circle of control. We can't control that person converting to decrease the number that's on our spreadsheet, but we can control doing the best that we can and going the extra mile, which many of you did, moving forwards to get them to convert as well. So the stress container exercise is a reflection on you, and it works for if you're working with a colleague as well and you notice that some things aren't right, you can try that together. It's very, very powerful, but just be aware that you need to have the good working relationship as well, because obviously you don't say, oh, you look a bit stressed, because what happens is that they say, okay, well, my behaviour's changed, and what have they noticed? And that puts people on the defensive as well. And stress does, increase emotions, and things that were tiny go really, really big. And you've got the saying, the straw that broke the camel's back, and that's when the emotional snapping happens. But let's look at how we can actually get into a daily space of actually supporting ourselves and our well-being. So at the beginning, I gave us 2 cartoons. And looking at signs of stress, which is what you've already done together, to secrets of success. And all about admissions is numbers and fees and obviously the longevity of the school. So I wanted to introduce you to the work of Stephen Covey from the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And here we've got 2 little piggy banks of deposits and withdrawals. Now, if I was to ask you in the chat to write or type something that is a deposit in your admissions world and a withdrawal in your admissions world, I would get many, many, many different reflections based on where you are. So if you would like to type that into the chat just now, I'm absolutely happy for you to do so. If you just want time to reflect on what's a deposit for you as an admissions practitioner and a withdrawal is, it's all about the reflection. And you'll notice that, these are the same size, but there's different emotions going on. So the interpretation of the withdrawals will be higher or lower than the deposits. And also, depending on that, also is all your working relationships with people. And in a workplace, people get on fantastically, people have got all their personal traits, introvert, extrovert, but also sometimes when somebody's navigating new territory in a workplace or they're struggling in a workplace, if they don't feel that they're able to talk, their behaviour goes back into their withdrawals as well. And sometimes in our busy world, because we've got our own stress container, we sometimes don't recognise other people's stress container. So let's move towards the secrets of success. Now I'm going to show you a daily tool that I use, and I've shown other people in different organisations this quick and effective daily tool to help you. So you're doing the Stephen Covey emotional bank account already, because every admissions practitioner, when you get an inquiry to conversion, you're actually dropping loads of deposits in the other party's emotional bank account. You're making them feel good, you're responding, you're asking the right questions, you're taking information and doing one more step. So all your actions are in a positive way to help move forward. But we can't control admissions, we can't control what's happening between different schools, different cultures, the way COVID's affected the sector, but we can control how our emotional bank account works. So in admissions, you have like admissions X bank account. It's all about the unknown. And in a deposit is something that goes in. So if you think about it, successful people have very, very high bank accounts. and it's all about the deposits and the withdrawals going out. So I think of it as positive and not so positive. So we talked about the conversations that we have with ourselves as well. So last Saturday was International Day of Kindness, and this week is Anti-Bullying Week with one kind word as well. So if you think about the deposits and the withdrawals, different situations for different scenarios. So if we reflect into your journey as admissions practitioner, you want to reduce the withdrawals in your year 11 so that you put in a good deposit for their sixth form. So different ways in admissions for deposits, is getting the information that you need, is about making sure you can match scholarships to students in need. For example, if you have a young person from a foundation, being able to give them the best start as well. And withdrawals is things like, remember the last time somebody broke a promise to you and how did it feel? Another withdrawal could be, something that on social media, there's not enough promotion of sport. So the withdrawal for that person coming to your school is if they're sporty, they're not going to relate to you. And as admissions practitioners, you can't move that forward. But if you think about the word deposit and withdrawal, every single day, the minute you get up in the morning to when you go to bed at night, you're on a journey in your own emotional bank account. And this emotional bank account is what's actually driving your well-being, it's driving your thoughts, your feelings, your behaviours, your next steps. So for some of you, based on what's happened emotionally when you walk into school, we need to remember that we have two different types of contracts. We have a psychological contract, our relationship with the school moving forward, which determines our well-being, and our actual black and white terms and conditions contract. And if you think about your well-being bank account, we've already started that journey this morning. And if you notice that I had admissions X and then well-being, this works for absolutely any area of your life. And a lot of people at the moment are looking at well-being bank account or future bank account and looking at what the deposit going in. So for example, a deposit going in could be going for a run. It could be actually sitting outside having lunch rather than at your desk, doing those extra emails that you think that you need to do. Whereas if you took half an hour out and had lunch outside on the bench, obviously not in today's weather, that would give you the space that you needed to have. A deposit could be something like, Friday we're all sitting together just chatting. It could be sharing a well-being tip with the rest of the school. So for example, IAC, to our mental health and well-being, they do a lot of work based in Cardiff, and they do well-being bites. And what happens is that in an organisation, when I'm supporting or training with an organisation, we encourage them to do well-being bites, which means that everybody either films something or writes something of a well-being tip to give to someone else. A withdrawal in your bank account is, for example, your time. So I know that in the sector, securing overseas borders was quite difficult during COVID. So some people were going to work during the day and then getting up at 3 a.m. to do calls with agents overnight. And that withdrawal on your wellbeing bank account is actually bigger than you think, because by working that way, you're also introducing a sleep debt, and sleep is your golden superpower. And this sleep debt doesn't kick in on day one. It usually kicks on day 2 or day 3. And you can't manage it with coffee, which is what I told somebody last week. So you need to be looking at your golden superpower and knowing how much sleep that you need to have. Another withdrawal could be that you know that you should be taking time off, but you do those 3 or 4 emails, or not having all your meals. And as I'm going through the definitions and like ideas of deposit and withdrawal, some of you will be sitting there thinking, okay, I do this, I do this, I do this in the deposit. But what usually happens is, because the human brain is always looking at the negative first, I can guarantee that you've sat and written about 10 or 12 withdrawals. And I would ask you to reflect on that, because that's the space that you're in. So if you've written all the withdrawals as you've been going through listening to me, what can you do in the opposite vein to increase your deposits? Because successful people have big bank accounts. If you're looking career-wise, you want to be putting the deposits in so that, you're helping yourself for your next step in the same way as the young person that you're dealing with. And you want to have basically on a Sunday night, I look at my deposits, I look at my withdrawals, and I make sure that I'm still positive, even if it's just by one. And during COVID, there was a couple of times where it was a -1, so I had to do more work. You're wanting like +1, +2, +3. And then by doing this, you're actually checking in with yourself, because checking in with yourself is quite difficult to do. Because if you think about the environment you're in, you're holding collective stress containers, but you're also holding collective bank accounts for futures. And a deposit for you could be a withdrawal for someone else based on their personality and their work history, because the currency for the person or with the person is to help. So if you step back and you think of a colleague and step into their shoes, what one thing could you do as an act of kindness to help them move forward? And in family organizations as well, we do that automatically with each other, or we do that automatically, when we come back in the summer. But what if we did it day by day? And by stepping into someone's shoes as admissions practitioners, you're used to doing this, because that's how you move your admissions journey from inquiry to conversion. But what if you stepped into someone's shoes at work and looked at what deposit you could give them, but also the withdrawals that are affecting your well-being, which is your well-being at work and your well-being as a person as well. And you really need to be aiming for 5 to 1, 5 deposits to 1 withdrawal. So some of you will be thinking, well, hang on a minute, that's a lot of deposits. Well, a lot of deposits, a lot of emotional and positive energy that's going on. But a deposit doesn't have to be huge. It can be from 1 pence to £1 million if we think about it in terms of money. It can be from one word or one moment or one act of kindness. It could be as simple as, okay, who wants coffee? And that's a deposit, and it's about communication. And these deposits and withdrawals determine how you feel about yourself, which in turn will affect your professional and your personal identity. And when you look at deposits for other people, just be mindful of, stepping into their shoes, because sometimes, we think, yeah, that's a good idea, but it's not for that person. So say there's a big group of people going out, the person might be new, or they might be very quiet in their approach, and, they don't want to go out in a big group, but catching up one-to-one, is a deposit for them, because the withdrawal would be in a big group situation. So this well-being bank account, or career bank account, or future bank account, or admissions journey bank account, where you look at the deposits and withdrawals with the other person, is really, really, really important. And the well-being one, when you start it, it's quite difficult for a couple of times, because we always miss the deposits, always, always, always. Okay, we'll write loads of withdrawals, but we'll always miss the deposits. So just be kind to yourself and just think of 1 or 2 things that you've done for yourself, and you could ask other people as well. So let's finish with 5 ways to put I into your world. Do something that makes you laugh, a funny movie perhaps. It could be, cooking with nieces and nephews like I do, and and that's just fun conversation, and the most important moment is with them, so I'm not focusing on everything else. One of the most important things is to look and track at your stress container. Mental Health First Aid England have an animated version of this, where you can actually see it moving as well. And when you're doing it, just be very kind to yourself, very, very kind to yourself. And one of the tips that I want to give you is, I've talked about my wellbeing toolbox. So I've talked about having, bubbles in the drawer and having my colouring book. That's my wellbeing toolbox. It's personalized to me. So what I have is, I have a box, and I put things in there that I know when I open it is going to make me feel better. So I've got my bubbles, I've also got my colouring book, I've got chocolate, because for me, I've got hot chocolate and other chocolate. I've also got little cards that have been sent to me for thank yous. and things from overseas, because I do a lot of photography for my well-being. As you've seen from the beginning, from the cartoons, a picture says 1,000 words. So I keep 5 or 6 pictures that I've really enjoyed taking in there, because that ignites like a positive memory. And I would recommend that if you want to start somewhere, start with your wellbeing toolbox, because that's personalized for you, and it also works for members of your family and children as well. Start your wellbeing personal bank account. If you're not comfortable looking at the wellbeing side, look at the career side. Some people find it easier when I've been working with them to look at the career side. So what you're putting in, and what's a withdrawal for you to move to the next stage. Because obviously we have to look after ourselves in this market as well, because the market has changed significantly. And, there has been organisations who've closed that we didn't expect the sector to close, and your future depends on you. When you're looking at deposits and withdrawals, reflect on what your friends and colleagues would say. So sit in that chair and think, okay, at work today, what would my colleagues say was a deposit, or what deposit did I give to them? So passing on deposits is passing on kindness and different emotions. Remember the power of collective. You're not responsible for collective. It may feel like that way sometimes. Everyone has their own bank account and their own stress container, but sometimes in extreme situations, you're managing the collective bank accounts of a senior team, of different opportunities and different things that have happened. But at the end of the day, it's you sitting in that chair with the experience and the knowledge and topping up your well-being to move forwards. And always believe in the power of one. It's the power of one that makes a change. And that one colleague who you share an idea with, or a well-being bite, that could be, the actual nugget for them not to be off. It could be the nugget that starts a journey. So I'd like to thank you for your time today. I hope that's been useful. I'd like to finish by thanking you. I'd like to thank you for the time that you've given today. I'd like to also, say sorry if your school hasn't given you the support that you needed. Because at the end of the day, it's been a very, very difficult 20 months. And if you have anything from this session, please take from the session that wherever you are now, you can move forwards to where you want to be, one step at a time. So reflect on the exercises, be curious about the deposits and withdrawals for your bank account, and let me know how you get on. Once you get into the routine, it's absolutely wonderful. And if you don't like the bank account, you think, oh, I'm not okay with this, find something that works for you, because we're all very, very creative practitioners. So thank you very much for your time.
Tracy, thank you so much. I think a lot of people will take an awful lot away from that. It really was very much about us and about the individuals, and that's what's really important. It's been 35 minutes of personal development that I think is long overdue for very, very many people in our sector. So I want to thank you very much. This recording will be available on the platform quite soon after we've finished. So if anybody's been participating today and thinks, do you know what, I really need to kind of go over that again in a slower way, then check out the recording. Tracy's details will also be on there, and a copy of the slides will be on the platform. Get in touch. Tracy's more than happy for you to get in touch with her individually if you have any questions, thoughts, or just want to take this a little bit further. Tracy, thank you so much once again. Thank you to everybody who's been on here today. I really, really, really do hope that it's helped some of you, all of you. It's what we wanted to make sure we gave to you in this particular event. So thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you again very soon. And thank you again, Tracy. That was great. Thank you.
Thank you.